La da da da. Okay. In theory, we're going live. I think that's a theory. Hang on. Before I turn on the camera, it's coming on in just a second. Hang tight. Need to take a drink of tea. I probably should get some more tea, but I don't have any more tea right now, so I'm just going to have to deal with it the way that I have it because such is life. So now I'll just say hello. Hi. Welcome. Here we are. Podcast Pontifications. The live taping is going on right now. Hope you love it. Hey, everybody. We are going to be talking today about unlocking some podcast listener data without being creepy. Calm down. I know anytime we talk about data, rightly so, many privacy advocates out there say, you're getting scary, and I get it. But I promise nothing I'm going to talk about today is scary. Nothing I'm going to talk about today is scary. All just good data that I wish we would get from the podcast listening apps, which is what I'm going to talk about in about 2 or 3 minutes. Now, for the new people, hi, Evo Terra. I do this thing called Podcast Pontifications 4 days a week, and I do it live on video because I'm just better when I look in at people. And I assume there's someone back there. Is that you? Anyhow. So this is the live taping of the show. Now, the show proper, the episode itself, is not this stuff. This is me just kind of getting ready. This is the pre-show, me saying hi, hello, welcome, those sorts of things. You want to sit through all this? Great. Feel free. Once I get started in about 3 minutes here, it'll only take about 7 to 10 minutes and I'll be done with the topic. But if you're a busy person, and I get people are busy these days, you do know you can go to podcastpontifications.com and get the final product when it's released in about 3 hours. This is episode 420, so there's also plenty of things for you to chew through back there. But at 10 o'clock Phoenix time, which is 3 hours from now, you will get the fully edited audio version of just the good stuff, none of this stuff. You'll also have an article that I have rewritten. I'll take the transcript that I generate, correct that transcript, but then also rewrite every stinking word so that it reads nicely. That's on the website. That also, both of those things, the audio, there we go, and the article are emailed out to a few hundred people who have said, give me this by email. It's totally free. Podcast Pontifications in your inbox. There's a sign-up form on podcastpontifications.com. So whatever you want, it's going to be there. And then a little later today, when Ali's done with the video, the edited version of the video, again, with this stuff chopped off, will also be available for anyone to listen to and watch and do all those things. So that's what's going. Good morning, Betty. Good morning, JD. Good morning, Stephanie. Good morning, Arlen. Hey, the cool thing is, thanks to Restream, the service I'm using now, it looks like these chats are now coming into a single interface. So I don't have to go to other places. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to say what happens. So good morning. Good morning. See, we're going to see if that goes anywhere. I don't know where it's going to go. Looks like maybe it only went to YouTube and to Twitter/Periscope. But anyhow, hey, it's better than nothing, right? I'm seeing the comments, and that's the important thing. So thanks to you four for being here, and also to Mei Ling, who's here. Thank you, my dear. She said, I'm looking good this morning. Well, isn't that nice of you? Okay, so let's talk about unlocking some podcast listener data without being creepy. This was predicated, in case you missed the news, Amazon is about to launch Podcast Portal. So that's what's made me thinking about this. So I have moved that over there. I will now move this over here. And can I get to everything? I can get to everything. All right. Oh, you know what? I didn't lock the door, close the door, and I also didn't turn off the air. But let me turn off the air. The door will just have to stay because I don't feel like getting up and doing that right now. So, great thing about having everything on your phone is I can say, hey, don't turn on the air until it gets to 24C. All right. Let's do the cold open. Podcast apps have all the data podcasters want. Ooh, that didn't sound good at all. Podcast apps have all the data podcasters want. Way more than our hosting companies provide. But there's so much more they could tell us that would be good for us, good for them, and good for the listeners. That's what I'm going to say. All right? You guys ready for that? Here we go. Podcast apps have all the data podcasters want. Way more than our hosting companies provide. But there's so much more they could tell us that would be good for us, good for them, and good for the listeners. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. When Apple Podcast launched Podcast Connect several years ago, I was terribly excited by that. So were a lot of other podcasting pundits and consultants and experts out there. But then Apple's Podcasters Connect or Podcast Connect platform came out, and we all had to roll back our expectations. Because the data was pretty thin, not surprisingly, and it really didn't answer the questions we all wanted. But don't get me wrong, it was good to have. It was finally good to have some information on listener retention, listen-through rate. It was very nice to see that data, but still it was like, oh, I just wish there was more. And just today I heard that Amazon/Audible is silently and quietly, which are the same things, rolling out what looks to be another podcast platform. So they'll join not only Apple Podcasts with their Podcasts Connect, they will also join Spotify and Google Podcasts. Next up will be Amazon. And then that makes me think, who's after that? Right? What are the next ones going to be? Why not iHeartRadio? Why not Pandora? Why not everybody? Why not Overcast? Why not every single podcast app giving us some data about what's happening with our shows inside of their apps? Because as I said at the beginning, they own the data. They understand more about the people listening to our shows than we, the podcasters, do, and certainly more than our podcast hosting companies do. So I wanted to take this episode to think about a what-if situation. What if they were to open up, the podcast apps, and give us some data that is not in any way PII. I don't want someone's name or email it. Well, I probably do want that, but look, we do not need that information. We do not need that, but we could get some pretty good stuff. So let's roll with that for a moment. The biggest problem, I think, with all of these portals is that they have failed to answer the question that I think most podcasters really want to know. And that is, how big is my audience? Seems like a straightforward question to answer, certainly a question to ask, but it's not one to answer because, well, what do we mean by that? Now, they do a decent job of that. They're not completely absent in this world, but here's what we get. Spotify has a metric they give us called listeners. I don't know if they're really listeners or not. Basically, those are, in their definition, users of their platform who have at least started an episode. I don't know what started means, but nonetheless, unique users on Spotify's platform who have started an episode. But I don't know over what time that is. So that's a listener. Now, they also give a follower number, and that means pretty clearly what a follower is. That's an individual Spotify account who has chosen to follow a show. And yes, the listener's number is much larger than the follower's number. Is that the size of the audience on Spotify? Maybe, but again, with some parameters, it might be more helpful. How big is my audience? Apple Podcasts gives you something similar. They give you devices. Also, once again, unique devices that have played an episode, they say. We just don't know over what time. And by the way, Apple Podcasts does not show, well, what they used to call subscribers, or still do, I guess, and are soon going to see followers. So I don't know. So if my device's number is 15, does that mean I only have 2 followers? We just don't know. It's just not, we don't have the data. And Google only gives subscribers. No information about unique Google users, and also not across what time frame. So none of those three, and I therefore assume that when Apple comes out, they're probably also not going to answer that question for us. But they all could. They all could say in the last 30 days, in the last 90 days, in the last whatever days, these are the number of unique people that's used our device to listen to X number of seconds or minutes of your show. So easy for them to give that to us, but they're probably not going to anytime real soon. But while I was thinking of the wish list, I thought, well, let's talk about other things. What else could we get? Because again, the listener data is locked up inside of those apps, and I mean the listening data. Here's one thing I would love to get from these apps. I'd like to get some information on discovery. You know, that thing that podcasters keep saying is broken that I'm not really so sure is broken. But I'm curious about discovery in the app, in the service they provide. Now, Google Podcast does a very little bit of this because they're Google. And if you've logged into Google Analytics or the Google Search Console, you know that Google likes to cough up a lot of information. But all of their discovery is about Google Search. It's not about the Google Podcast app, which is a weird app, I get it. But just imagine if Apple Podcast did this, or Spotify or Amazon did this. We could get information about was our content discovered by someone from certain categories that we might be listed in? Because I'm listed in 3 categories. You probably have your show listed in 3 categories as well. Which one of those categories are people using to find your content? Because people actually do go to the category section and find shows from there. Or were there search terms that were used inside of the app? Most of these services have horrible search engines, but they get better. Could we get some search data that's coming back? How many of these listeners / followers / audience size, how many were following direct links to that platform from somewhere else? And what's the referral of that information? Discovery information would be great. Want to give up some data about MAUs, or monthly active users. It's great to know how many listeners I have, but just like Google Analytics kicks out a report for 7, 14, and 30-day MAUs, monthly active users, I want to know, are those listeners, what percentage of those listeners out there have consumed 2 episodes, 3 episodes, 30 episodes? What's the virality, not virality, wrong word, but what's the stickiness of the content that we have? Reporting back on how many times people keep coming back to our content would be quite helpful. I want to know about, let's call them swipe lefts, right? I have both had the same encounter. We're looking through our podcast list of the episodes that have been either provided to us via download or ready for streaming, and we choose to swipe left and just delete some of those before we leave, before we even read them, before we listen to them. I want to know that. Podcasters want to know, hey, these episodes, this many is sitting in the queue, this many were already dismissed. That's great information. Maybe we could improve the way that we're creating our shows, or at least titling our episodes would be very helpful. How about providing some ranking details for the services that provide ranks? And you know that when Amazon Music and Audible comes out, there's going to be charts over there because Amazon's big on the charts. And Amazon's good at coughing up that data for authors. Will they do it for podcasts? Will they give some information? Why doesn't Apple give me some information? I want to know that my podcast is currently ranked X in the Y chart. Easy information they could provide to us right in the interface. What about listener flow? As a listener listens from one episode to the other episode of the same podcast, I'm not looking for outsider information, but I want to know if someone is listening to episode 420 and then 419 and 418. Are they going that way? Are they bouncing around? Show me the flow. Again, Google Analytics does a great job of this using a Sankey chart, I learned about that term not long ago, to show you where people are moving from one episode to another. Provide that. Give us that information so we know what's connecting our episodes together that will help us, the podcasters, make better content for the listeners. And then also some listener insights. Now, Spotify's doing a decent job about this. Not the best job about this, but pretty good. So, just some ideas. Look, I don't think we podcasters have a preference, but if we got better data, I'm pretty sure we'd have a very strong preference, right? The browser wars were won by who could service the user better. Maybe the podcast browser wars will be won by those who gives us the better data. I don't know. Insights I think we could really need. Ask your peers what they think. And most importantly, if you really like the content I provide to you, please go to buymeacoffee.com/evoterra. That's it. See you tomorrow for another Podcast Pontifications. Cheers. I went long. That was 10 minutes and 7 seconds. I'm so sorry, Allie. Well, the good news is, I don't know if it's good news or bad news that might impact our ability to upload that episode to LinkedIn. Oh, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So, anyhow. Right. So, thanks for listening to that one. Let's see, Betty. I totally raspberried up. Yes. So, all right. Well, I'm glad I'm reading the comments. Seems like everybody, you also would like to get that data. Who knows if we'll get it? I mean, these providers aren't very, if you're listening, Apple podcasters and other people. Hi, Bruce, whatever. So, we will see how things go. We shall see. If you missed it, podcastpontifications.com is where you can get it in a little less than 3 hours from now. Again, the fully produced audio version without this stuff at the end, the totally rewritten article, which is what takes me forever, and all of that will be emailed to people who are signed up for the Podcast Pontifications in your inbox service, which is totally friggin' free. You should do it. And then a little later today, Allie will have the video up live on the website, podcastpontifications.com as well. Thanks for your attention. Have an enjoyable rest of your day. I'm going to get some work done. You try and do the same thing. See you tomorrow.